Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast. And we are back for another UFC picks and predictions video. I'm rejoined by UFC expert Shane. Gave us some good picks last time, hoping to continue the good mojo for UFC 313. Now, before we get into UFC 313, we will be breaking down UFC 312. So as always, had my 5 picks. Unfortunately, went 2-3 on picks, 22 and 29 overall. I did make some money though, so at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Did you have any thoughts on the prelims of this card? I mean, not really anything too special.
I mean, it was some great energy from the crowd. Like whenever they go out here to Australia, it's always crazy, and they had a good showing of like the home talent, and even when the home talent lost, like they didn't lose too terribly from what I remember. So like there was a lot of good fights on the early prelims. Like they started off. Oh, I'm pretty sure. Is this the fight card that like almost all of them? No. This isn't the fight night after this. Like almost all of them ended in knockouts. It was crazy, but this one had a lot of knockouts too and a lot of great performances.
Yeah, that one fight, I think it was Rongju versus Cody Steele, was a crazy fight. One of the early fights on that prelims. Besides that, I had trust in Brunno Brazil to get it done against the Joker, and she just looked like complete shit. One of the worst picks of the year. I mean, I don't know what happened with her. Kevin Jousset got bitched as well, so that was pretty bad. And then the only other thing I had was Jack Jenkins. I had that fight to go the distance. That didn't end up going the distance. And then Tom Nolan was like sitting on his back the whole fight. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird prelims.
Yeah.
There was a really good fight with the Rongju fight, but besides that, I mean, people kind of knew going into this card. So we'll get into the main card. Jake Matthews. Are you a fan of Jake Matthews?
I like Jake Matthews, and I had him picked for this fight as well on my parlay. But I've always liked him. Prado showed some promise, but I think like it was a good fight overall. That's and it was what I like to see.
Yeah, I like Jake Matthews. I feel like he's pretty consistent. Like you're gonna get every fight. Like he can beat the lower tier guys. Maybe not the higher tier guys, but we'll see what's next for him. Jimmy Crute and Bellato, majority draw or just draw? Yeah, weird fight. I didn't really bet on that fight or pick that fight because I don't even know anything about either of them, but that was just kind of weird way that played out.
Yeah, that was tough. I did have a revenge bet against Jimmy Crute because I had bet either against him or for him in previous times, and I always lose whenever he's on my parlay, and so I bet on Rodolfo here, and the draw ended up killing me. It ended up pushing the parlay actually. So
yeah, I think it pushes, which is good. So then our last fight before the championship fights, we had one of the Tafa brothers. I think it was Justin faces off against Talison Teixeira, prospect fresh up from the Dana White Contender Series, and it went about as expected. The Tafa brothers are not really. A lot of people don't like them.
Yeah, they're just not doing themselves favors when they get in there. Like they could be such fan favorite. They could be another like Tai Tuivasa type character in the UFC where they get their good wins and they're like a fun, going guy. But like, you see them like yelling after their matches, getting all pissed off after a loss. They're just. It's sad to see because when I first saw them coming in, I was like, oh, two Australian brothers. These guys could be vibes in the UFC kind of like atmosphere, but I haven't really liked them so far as well.
Yeah, they seem to be kind of a team that you just not team, but like a last name that you see and you're just like taking the other side automatically. I mean, it's a good win for Teixeira. I think he has another fight coming up. I'm forgetting against who, but and I think it's heavyweight they're in. So anything
yeah.
can happen for him. Prospect on the way up. Now the actual main events of the evening, the real fights that people were looking forward to. I believe you mentioned big fan of Zhang Weili.
My goat. This was huge. This was huge for me. This was ginormous because I was going into this so nervous. This was the same feeling going into the freaking Umar fight versus Merab. It was like, oh my god, dude, this person's undefeated coming in here, and they're gonna rip this fucking belt from this fighter that I love their fighting style. I love their character too. Like they're great. They're great people to be fans of, and I love Zhang Weili, and the performance was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, I don't understand why they keep putting like they had Merab at underdog odds, they had Weili at underdog odds. Like these people are the champions of the
Hammer
world
that
for a
in.
reason. Especially Weili, who's like, I mean, she's been on and off, not just because she's lost a couple of times to the belt, but like she's been basically a champ for a couple of years at this point. I
Yeah.
mean, I get it with the Tatiana Suarez. I guess she's some sort of big wrestler. I wasn't really familiar with her game before this fight, but I didn't.
Undefeated going into this, so
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really see much. I wasn't like impressed. I think I switched my pick actually. I was thinking about taking Suarez, but I was like, Zhang Weili is not going to lose.
no. Yeah.
So, I mean, really not much to talk about from this fight specifically because it just was like a Weili domination. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on a potential Weili Shevchenko super fight.
Well, have you heard the new stuff that apparently Diego Lopez is saying with
Oh yeah,
Diego Lopez said that the reason that him and Volkanovski are fighting for the belt is because the UFC is making it a thing where you need to relinquish your belt to move up a weight class and fight for the next one, which I think is kind of silly. It really messes with legacies in the future. So we'll just have to see how it goes. I don't love Weili moving up. But I definitely don't love Shevchenko moving down. I think the fight, if there was to be a fight to me, it would be Weili moving up. But as a fan, I wouldn't want to see that. I would want to see her keep on taking on
yeah.
these contenders
I
because I
mean,
think
I
there's
think
still contenders to be had.
Yeah,
So
Shevchenko, I think got booked on that Bilal Muhammad JDM. I think she's
yeah,
fighting Fiorot, if I'm correct.
which that's gonna be a tough fight for her. That's gonna be a tough fight for her.
Yeah,
I
and
like
she also just won the belt
Mairon.
back from Grasso, so she's got some work to do. I mean, I don't know if I feel like Dana a week later was like the double champ stuff is like wrong, but when you look at the everything that happened, it would just make sense that that would be actually true. So
Yeah,
we can get into
for
that
sure.
after. That was kind of a big flurry of moves that one night. So last fight on this card we had was Dricus versus Sean. I'm not sure what you thought was going to happen going into this fight, but Dricus is becoming one of my favorite fighters. I mean, his trash talk game is elite. I like him in the press conferences. I feel like he has a fun style too. That like no matter what, even this fight was probably like one of his more boring outcomes. He was just a complete domination. I don't know what was up with Strickland. I mean, just
Yeah.
wasn't throwing anything really. Like he didn't seem to have that usual persona that he has. Like he's walking you down, that type of stuff. I don't really know what was going on with him. So what was your takeaways from this fight? And did it kind of go as you expected it to, or?
I mean, he always fights super defensive. So, I mean, I wouldn't say like it was super out of characteristic how he fought. It's just later in the rounds when he needed to step on the gas, it just wasn't seen because like you get through round 1 and 2, and I'm not mistaken, they either both go to Dricus or maybe one of the judges threw to Sean.
Yeah, maybe one gave a round to Sean.
But I'm pretty sure it was clearly Dricus after 2 rounds, and it just didn't seem that way from the way that he was fighting round by round after that when it just kept on getting more and more dire. Like, and I agree with you. Like Dricus, especially after this fight, has really become one of my favorite fighters. Definitely one of my favorite champions right now. But I can't wait to see this middleweight division shake up with Cosmo fighting him next. Like
Yeah,
that's gonna be
I'm
wild.
excited for that fight because hot take maybe, but a lot of people have been saying I think Dricus could beat Kazma. I don't know what you think about that. If you think Kazma
I
is just
think
like,
Yeah, I think it's totally possible. I think, however, you have to. I think the one thing that I would be very weary of is, and I feel like people say this going into every Dricus fight, is yes, his like kind of weird motions and his weird fight style is what gets him through. But I feel like with someone with Cosmot's like grappling, his weird kind of like fight style and his ways that he gets out of submissions and out of grappling scenarios, I feel like might actually just get him caught. Like I feel like that would be, it's going to be very, I feel like it could be very similar ending to the as the ending to the Robert Whittaker fight, where it just right around the neck because he like kind of like flails his arm back or goes for a move that usually works on 99% of the world, but 99.9% of the world. But this is Khamzat, like one of the best grapplers that we've seen, and he is relentless too. But so is Dricus. So I'm really interested to see how long Khamzat stands with Dricus. I would assume instantly, just like I forgot which. I feel like it's all his fights, but there was a big one where like he instantly just dove right for the knees to try and take someone down. But we'll see. I'm interested in this fight a lot, and I'm also interested in Strickland versus Whittaker. That's going to be
that's
big
happening?
for either person. I think it's already been announced.
Okay.
I'm not
that's
100%
interesting
certain on that, but I've heard that it's been announced. I could be wrong about that.
I know it was definitely in the rumors because I remember them talking about it. So yeah, I mean, Strickland, I think he's going to be kind of middle of the pack in this division moving forward. I mean, he's going to be not a gatekeeper because he's like one of the top guys, but I feel like I don't see him making a title run anytime soon, especially because there's a lot of people lined up in that division. With
middle of the pack of like the top 5, not of like the
like
rankings, because
5,
I don't
6,
think he's
like
dropping
4,
to
one of
like
those people.
Cannoneer or any of
Yeah,
them. Which he had
I
a
mean,
great fight recently too.
yeah. So now that we're kind of over UFC 312, are there any like bigger topics you want to get to? I mean, we had that huge news 2 weeks ago with everything happening with Ilya. We don't have to spend too much time on it, but just to catch everyone up.
But yeah, to catch everyone up, freaking Ilya's relinquished the belts and is moving up.
Yeah.
And now Volkanovski is going to be fighting Diego Lopez, which, oh my God, I'm excited, but not excited for this fight because I love both of these guys, and I want to see them both win, man.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's a tough one for me. I'm not excited for that. Well, I'm excited and not excited. Like it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be a great fight. It's just it's a win-lose either way for me as a fan.
Yeah. What about, I guess, one of your favorites, Merab? It looks like it's going to be Sean O'Malley again. I don't think it's confirmed, but that's like the big rumor.
I think that this is not the fight to be made. I get it's a good I think what this is really showing, and I could be just speculating here, but I think this is really just showing UFC really not believing in O'Malley that much. I think they're really just hammering home one last big pay-per-view, or not one last big, but like a big title fight. And because if they believed in him, in my opinion, I would think that they would have had him against Corey Sandhagen.
Yep.
They're both coming off a loss. They're both very similar fighters, and both resumes would be brought up if the other one beat them. And I think that was the clear fight to make, in my opinion, obviously. But we'll see. I think Merab does the same thing. I don't think
There's no
O'Malley's
incentive for him not to. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think O'Malley's going to throw anything different. I think he threw the kitchen sink at him the first time, and Merab was just doing his regular thing. I think Merab barely got uncomfortable in that first fight, and I don't know what O'Malley does to, like, who does he get in his camp to help? He's one of those guys that it's hard to train for. Like, I just don't think it's possible for Sean O'Malley. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think it's likely.
Yeah,
I think it's
me neither.
Sure, but
I want to see Peter Yan get back in there. I feel like he's done enough to deserve it.
That's the fight that I think should have happened for the title for sure. I think O'Malley should have fought Sandhagen to see for a title eliminator, and then while Merab versus Peter Yan fought. Yeah, that would be such a cool story. Because would that be Peter Yan 3-time champ or 2-time champ? I think that's 2-time, but it could be 3.
Too, but I wasn't familiar with pre-2020 UFC a lot. So, quiet night for the bantamweights on this UFC 313, which we'll segue into now. So, UFC 313 taking place in Las Vegas, Nevada. Pretty stacked card, honestly. I think this is like one of the more stacked cards I've seen in a while. Maybe I don't even know, like, what do you compare this to? Maybe the Abu Dhabi card?
The Abu Dhabi card was really good. There was a few other ones that I think were. I don't know. I do think that this is stacked. I think this is absolutely stacked. It's up there with like dare I say like the 300 or the like the other events that they put on that have been. I'm trying to pull it up right now to see some.
Yeah, the problem is just a lot of them, the recent ones, the people have pulled out at the last second, like, or had
And
to
well,
pull out.
that's what's happened with this one too. And I think
Yeah.
this one would have been clear card of the year, like early on.
Yeah,
But
that Miami one looks good too. All right, so we'll dive right in. First fight, early prelims, you know, who knows what's going to happen, but our first fight of the night, we have middleweight division, Djorden Santos as a minus 200 favorite facing off against Ozzy Diaz plus 170. So right away, I don't know anything about either of these guys. Is there any insight you have specifically? Have you seen these guys before, or?
no, I've not seen either of these guys personally. I wish I have. I feel like well, it looks like just clicking onto Santos's profile, he has the Dana White Contender Series gloves on. So I'm guessing he's coming up and it's probably his debut.
Yep, he did have a win in September of last year in the Dana White Contender Series, 10-1 overall in his career. Hasn't lost since 2019, so I mean that probably explains why he's our favorite in this fight. Ozzy Diaz did fight against Joe Pfeiffer actually and lost to him. Of course, has not won in UFC related stuff. So, have you been making your bets for this
I
card,
haven't
or you
I have
haven't
not
cooked
made my
yet?
card yet, but
Okay.
I definitely will give you I'll give you five locks at the by the end of this for sure.
Okay, sounds good. So for me, I mean, we can kind of skip through this since it's like a Dana White Contender Series guy versus like
Yeah.
I don't want to say like a can or whatever, but I mean this Ozzy Diaz guy doesn't really impress me. So I do think I like Santos coming off last fight card with the Talison Teixeira being coming out of the Dana White Contender Series being a huge favorite. I think that leans well for me, just like trusting those guys in the future because I think the Dana White Contender Series. I'm not sure. Do you watch the Dana White Contender Series?
No, I wish I did, but I don't. I don't
Yeah,
currently.
it's like I wish I could, but it's on like random nights. I don't really know when it's on, but I think that kind of gives you like the UFC vibe of like you're not in a full-fledged UFC fight, but it's kind of like what it's really like preparing, weight cut, stuff like that. So I'm gonna trust the Djorden Santos on this pick. Usually I don't like to bet the first card of or first fight of the night. This wasn't even the first fight of the night, but they switched around the order, so now it is. Regardless, I'm gonna trust in Djorden Santos, and we'll include him in a pick later. So we can move right on since we don't really have much to say about these two guys. Next fight, featherweight division. Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda. This one was a replacement. I don't know who Chris Gutierrez was supposed to fight at the beginning, but it's John Castaneda who comes in on short notice. Once again, not really much to say about either of these guys. John Castaneda has a loss against Nathaniel Wood. Anything you really
I
see out
mean,
of these?
Gutierrez had that fight against Song Yadong and he's been in the UFC for a little while and got some good fights. I definitely lean towards Gutierrez on this.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd put him on my parlay, but if you're willing to wager, I think he's going to show his experience.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. For me, I don't know. I don't know much about either of these guys, so I'm kind of staying away from this one. I don't really see like a sign either
Yeah.
way. But I do like this fight to go the distance. I think, especially, I feel like maybe this is a crazy thing to say, but I feel like the short notice fights end up going to the distance. Maybe like a little bit more. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's like me just thinking that or just remembering wrong, but I feel like you prepare for this guy and then you're kind of like round one hits and you're like, oh wait, this is a different guy than I prepared for. You're kind of not tentative, but like a little bit more conservative with the fighting style because the guy you've been training for is not there. It's someone else that you had only a couple days to train for. That's just me though. I mean, I think this could go the distance just due to they both have a lot of decisions on the record as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll trust you with the Gutierrez if I do end up betting on this one, but probably gonna skip the
Yeah,
early prelim.
personally, I don't think I will, but
Yeah,
if anyone, that's who I would pick if gun to my head.
yeah. Okay, we'll keep it moving on the early prelims. So we have another featherweight fight. Mairon Santos, big favorite against Francis Marshall. Mairon Santos is another one in the Dana White Contender Series, just coming off a win in the fall of last year. Francis Marshall does have a little bit of history in the UFC. No real notable wins that I'm seeing. I guess he lost to William Gomez, so I think is pretty bad. So anything you have on this one? I mean, again,
I
these early prelims are a little bit sleepy for me just because I don't know any of these guys or haven't seen any of these guys fight. So
Yeah, these two specifically are definitely the ones that I'm the least uh confident in my knowledge of. Like the other one, it's come from Dana White Contender Series, so I can put two and two that they're probably gonna not give him a layup, but give him a easier test than someone who's just making their UFC debut from like a rival organization. But I think I don't I'm not confident in betting either way in this even with the heavy favorite.
yeah, I think this is another one that could go the distance. Myron, I don't remember what exactly the result was with his Dana White Contender Series fight, but I feel like he had a knockout win. Okay,
Oh, he
but
was also.
yeah, I don't know. I
Oh
think
shoot.
a lot of decisions. I mean, this one might be a plus odds, so this could go to the distance. I don't know. I had to take something because I'm like,
Yeah, I
I
feel
think
that.
Santos will win, but like, can't trust it again when he hasn't really fought in the UFC. So I think this one maybe go the distance just to be a little surprised because people might think it ends early just due to their previous records and the other promotions that not the UFC. But when you come to the UFC, things kind of slow down, especially in your first couple of fights. So if I had to guess, I'll take Myron Santos by decision, but I'm not holding a ton of confidence in that just because, like you said, it's not really knowledgeable on these two guys. So now we'll get to the prelims where we have people that we actually can talk about and know a little bit about, starting
Oh
with
yeah.
a welterweight fight between Alex Morono and Carlos Leal. Where do you want to start with this one? Which of these guys are you confident, not confident on? Because I have a lot to say on both of them, actually. So go ahead.
I feel like this is the biggest oh we're gonna get you like by the UFC with all the huge favorites, right? With all the huge favorites, the Payne Talbots, the etc., the everyone else that have come in big favorites and then lost big against huge underdogs. I feel like this is one that's just set up that it's like, oh, this is another one that's just gonna beat the heavy favorite. I like Leal though, but I would go with Morono just with the past. My heart says Leal, but my brain's telling me Morono.
Really?
Yeah, because just previously off of I just
The
had
big
this
odds?
conspiracy with these huge odds. They just love to say that stat at the end of the freaking broadcast. Oh, and cheers to whoever who got that huge win over Payton Talbot. That was a plus 1,300 for them to win by decision.
Yeah, it does feel like there is one of those each card that's like this huge underdog does come up and win one. But I watched Alex Morono fight at UFC 302 against Nico Price. I think it was a rematch. He looked horrible in that fight. Like I don't think I had anything on that fight, but it was like in the middle of the card, and it was just like, what am I watching? Like he didn't show any spirit at all. I don't know if he switched weight class or something. Since then, he's also lost a split decision to Daniel Rodriguez in October 2024. I just have this like vision in my head of him being horrible in this Nico Price fight. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but
The
I don't
the
know.
thing my main issue with the main reason why I'm leaning towards the huge underdog on this one, and I wouldn't put this one in a parlay. I would do this just
Yeah,
straight
no, I'm
money.
not either. But
I would do the straight money line just on Morono, just because that Leal fight that I feel like a lot of his hype is generating from is from a fight that he lost. But I thought he won. It was a very fraudulent win by uh
Renat,
yeah, Renat. I'm not gonna try
yeah,
the
it's not even
gladiator.
worth it.
But yeah, I think especially how he won that fight, he was on the back foot, but engaging. But it was kind of like fricassee, like just with how like it was sloppy, but it was working for Leal in that fight. Like it was weird. I still lean towards Morono though.
Okay. I thought Leal looked good in that performance, but that was also on super short notice, if I remember correctly. I think
It
like
was, yes. He just
within
got
a
brought
couple
up.
days. Yeah. So
That
I
was
know
his debut too.
there's sort of a stigma around guys who come up, especially on short notice. They maybe have some, systems where they're able to pass some drug tests. So I'm not convinced that Morono won't just win this in like a 2-1, like win 2 rounds and win easily. Like I'm not dismissing that fact. So I'm not touching that part, but I do think it will go the distance. I mean, Leal had pretty good pressure
Oh
last
yeah.
time, but he didn't really look like he was going to knock Renat out. I remember that was like in the middle of October. I literally woke up and that fight was on because it was super early because Abu Dhabi card.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like, I thought Leal won that fight too, but I wasn't overly impressed with his performance. I was more kind of disappointed in Renat's performance.
Mhm.
So this one's weird too because Leal started as like minus like 550, and then all of a sudden, every time I look, he just is more and more of a favorite. So I
It's
definitely could
because
see like people just pouring money onto him, seeing the number,
yeah.
and then like you're right on the UFC broadcast, like, oh, look at all the idiots who bet on Carlos Leal, biggest
Yeah.
underdog on the thing.
And again, it's all these people that are like, "Oh my god, dude! Like, I bet against like Renat because this is what I did. This is what because I this is what my initial reaction to this fight being seen is like, oh my god, I'm hammering money on Leal, and then I saw the line, and then I was like, oof, I'm not doing that. But when he beat Renat, I had Renat on my parlay, and
So
even with Leal or even with Renat coming out with that win, I'm like, holy shit, this dude Leal is a better fighter than Renat in that fight, like in my opinion, or fought a better fight, and like he's a good fighter, and I think people are seeing that and going with a lot of confidence. I think he will have a lot to prove, which I think does go towards him being more of a favorite. Where Morono has a lot to prove too. He has two losses that, if I remember correctly, sure they were losses, but they were competitive at times. Like he he's not a terrible fighter. I don't think I know Morono has his times. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering the same fight that you're talking about. You said was it 302?
yeah,
Yeah.
the New Jersey.
Yeah. I think I remember that fight too. And it's like you never know what a fighter's going through that day. I don't know.
That's true.
It's tough to go off of one fight. It's better to go off like a streak of
I mean, yeah, Morono does have a career. I mean, he owns a win over Cowboy Cerrone, so we'll see if he can right the wrongs. I mean, 2-fight lose streak. I think there's a decent chance that he could get cut if he loses this fight, but
Oh,
we'll
that's
we'll
also
see.
yeah, that's a huge thing as well that I forgot. Like last card, I believe it was the last fight night. It was Cody Brundage's like final card or final fight on his contract, and he just went out and showed out, if I remember correctly. And that has a huge like now that you say that, oh my god, hammer the money on Morono because dude, he has everything to lose. You have $5 to lose. Go throw that shit on him. And
True.
I think Leal doesn't have that. He is coming in like wanting to right that wrong of the Renat fight, but I don't think he's coming in with that. Oh, I need to feed my kids next paycheck.
Because even if he loses, he'll be like, "Oh, well, I beat Renat, and then I just lost to Morono," So we'll see.
Exactly. He's not. His contract's still fine. He'll be fine after this. It's Morono that's like, ooh, that's actually a good point. I didn't realize that. That's huge.
Yeah, I think it's one of those days where like if Morono loses this fight, like you just wake up on like a random like Thursday, and it's like, oh, Morono got cut from the UFC, and you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. Like he had some fun fights, but it makes sense since he lost 3 in a row.
Oh,
But
totally. Yeah, I could totally see that.
so we'll see. I like that to go the distance. Maybe when I'm making my bets, I'll be convinced to throw a couple bucks onto Morono. We'll just have to see what happens. So next one, we have middleweight bout between Brunno Ferreira and Armen Petrosyan or Petrosyan.
Yes.
So both of these guys were actually on that same Abu Dhabi card. Brunno Ferreira got submitted by Abus Magomedov, and then Armen took a spinning back fist via Shara or I think his last name is Magomedov too.
Yeah.
Um, so what is your take on these two guys? This seems like this is going to be one of the fight. I think this is like an early prediction fight of the night sleeper. Like this could be a
Yes.
complete war end early.
Yes. This is. I think if you're an MMA fan, you will enjoy this fight because you see Armen Petrosyan, which I remember for that Abu Dhabi fight, they were introducing him as like this guy. Maybe in Char Bullets, same organization, but he was also in the kickboxing scene in that same region. So it's like he's very, and he showed in that fight that he's very good at striking. It's just Sharp is very good. It's much better. He hit the craziest knockout I've seen in almost probably my life. And I think 10 times out of 10 you run both their fights in Abu Dhabi back. I think Armen Petrosyan might win one. I think Bruno Ferreira was getting a lot more pressured. If I'm not mistaken, this was also a short notice fight, or one of his most recent fights was a short notice fight. No, never mind. I'm thinking of the wrong one. Yep. But yeah, no, I think Bruno Ferreira. I have Armen Petrosyan. That's what I was going to go with. So I have Armen Petrosyan by knockout, probably.
Okay, well, I'm of the opposite mindset. UFC, we have to take and try and find our favorites. I think on this card, Brunno has one of the best chances just because it could be fireworks and it could go either way. Like,
True.
I agree with you,
That's
Armen.
true.
I mean, I missed the Shara fight because I had to run and do something, but I feel like this could just be who gets the last good strike in, and I don't know enough about Armen to be like, I know he's gonna be the one that comes and wins this one. He's also like when he's faced that next level of competition, not that Bruno's really done much either, but he has losses to Cal Baralho. But he did beat RoboCop and Christian Leroy Duncan. So I don't know.
I think I think it's a tough. I think the main thing to watch out for is how grapple heavy Bruno Ferreira is. Because if Bruno Ferreira is grapple heavy, I think he very much pulls us out with a decision. I think also or a submission win. Because I think he makes this like if he stands and banks with Armen, I think it's definitely a loss. If he makes it a dog fight where they're rolling all over each other, ground and pound, getting back up, taking them back down. Like I think Ferreira does win that fight. You've kind of swayed me on this. I think I'd more likely actually go with Ferreira by decision on this.
I think Ferreira in that fight against Abus too, like if I'm remembering correctly, I remember because I was watching in the car, I feel like I had Abus and then Abus like couldn't put him away. Like he was not like pesky, but like he just wouldn't give in, and like he was also providing pressure back. So I'm looking at Brunno as one of my favorite picks in this card, just because of the nature of betting on this sport, where you need to find like these good underdogs to make money. So I'm liking Brunno on this one. We'll see what happens, though. I could easily see it being Armen. I also like the under rounds on this. If they give us 2.5, I would definitely slam that. But if it's 1.5, maybe you like throw a couple bucks in that, just because it's
Yeah,
these
I mean,
two.
I like the over, but I think if Ferreira's winning, I think it's more likely to be by decision. I think I think, and I think if Petrosyan wins, I don't think it's by like a instant knockout. I think it's by like a round two. So if it's 1.5, I would definitely go over. I think, but that's just me.
So here's a little tidbit for you. Bruno Ferreira has never had a fight go the distance.
He
Either
hasn't
way.
had a fight go to distance, but they always go to. Do they now? Did he have a first round? He had a few. Oh fuck.
Well, I'm looking at he had 3/4 of his wins come via knockout, the rest via submission. He has been knocked out and submitted once, which was the Abus fight. And then
Oh,
Armen does have
Ferreira.
some
I'm looking at that.
decisions on his resume.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, if Bruno wins by decision, I'll be happy because I'm taking Bruno as well. So
I think it's going to be a good line too. I think with these two, all this being said, I think Ferreira by decision.
I think this one came down a little bit too, because I think I was looking at yesterday and Bruno was like plus 140. Now he's down to plus 125. So we will see. Definitely one of my fights that I'll be trying to watch on the prelims. I think that'll be a good war. I mean, this will be a great place to start. I mean, you can start with the Leal fight too, but I feel like if you start watching right now, we got bangers the rest of the night,
Yeah.
So keeping it moving, we have the flyweight division. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on both of these guys. So we have Joshua Van facing off against Rei Tsuruya. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Tsuruya.
Tsuruya. We'll just call him Rei.
Tsuruya.
He's 10-0. What is your take on him? And then we can get to Joshua Van, because I know more about Joshua Van. I don't know that much about Rei. I don't know if you've been.
I don't know that much about Rei either. I do know, with this huge like resurgence of Japanese MMA. I think he's probably pretty damn good. Like
Yeah.
I feel like this kind of new age of Japanese fighter that's coming in is not even close to the level of like when that Dagestani era first was coming in. Not close to that, but I think it's kind of like that same kind of, they're going to be creative with their like grappling and striking. You know that it's going to be a dogfight. There's going to, blood will be shed. Like they have good fights. They don't have boring fights. And I think Joshua Van is also a great example of that. I know
Yeah.
more about Joshua Van as well than Ray, but
Yeah, so Joshua Van, we saw him at the Sphere card against Edgar Chairez. I'm not sure. I'm sure you were watching that because you're a big Merab fan, but that was a crazy fight
that
back
was
and forth.
crazy.
It was early on the card. I think it was the second fight, but they only had a couple of fights in that card just due to the Spear or whatever. And then he called out Cody Durden for UFC 310, goes and beats Cody Durden. I think that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
So that win was really impressive too, because I mean Cody Durden was still high in the rankings. He's more of a wrestler. Like Van really just stood there and struck with him the whole time. So I'm liking Joshua Van in this one. Just I don't know if it's my like hesitancy to bet on Ray just because I don't know that much about him, but him being undefeated and then being plus 160, maybe this is like a situation where we look back and be like, what were we thinking? But I don't know. I feel like Ray's only had one UFC fight. Joshua Van has been very active. I mean, I remember him coming back on that Sphere card after being knocked out like less than 90 days before.
Yeah,
He's
that
been
was nuts.
active. So I'm going with Van. I don't know. I think this could be like a trap spot where people are gonna all bet on Ray just because he's undefeated. We don't really know like the Joshua Van backstory. I mean, I like Joshua Van a lot. I think he's a dog.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think they're absolute dogs, and I think this is like this is like this is like this is gonna be your Walmart version of Brandon Royval versus Tyra. Like it is going to
True.
be a war. Like it's going to be a 3-round war. I would not put this on your parlay. I would not. I would save your heart. Save your let yourself simmer down. Enjoy this fight. Don't put anything on this. I think this is just going to be pure
Chaos.
MMA. Like
Yeah.
perfect. Like
Cinema.
I don't even think it's going to be chaos. I think it's going to be both of them. I mean, Joshua Van's going to be obviously going there with chaos, but his striking is so good and so relentless. And again, I don't know much about Ray. Most of this is coming from assumption, but I would assume he's got good grappling and got a decent striking game as well. And I think this could be fireworks.
I agree. I think this is another one that could easily be fight of the night.
Yeah,
Definitely
definitely.
see some like performance bonuses in these guys' future. Okay, so we'll keep it moving. Heavyweight division. So we had Curtis Blaydes. We saw him fight against Tom Aspinall. We saw that 1 minute they were in the ring together in UFC 304, and he comes back. What was that, like July? So about 8 months later, big favorite against Rizvan Kuniev. So what is your take on Curtis Blaydes? Do you like him? And then also, do you know much about Rizvan? Because this is the first I'm hearing of him.
I know nothing about the Riz, but I do know Curtis Blade is a dog, man. I love Curtis Blades in terms of like he's probably like my favorite heavyweight, excluding John Jones. John Jones is kind of his own thing, but like I I love Tom Aspinall too, but Curtis Blades is just such a cool guy. Like especially throughout UFC history, like even though he's had some scary ass losses, but he's had some very great wins. Like that win over Almeida. Oh my god, dude! That was one of the ones where I bet on Almeida, and actually I remember I bet on Almeida to have over 3.5 takedowns. He had like 5 in the first round. Went for the one in the second round. Like the first one in the second round just got hammer fisted to it. Dude, I love Curtis Blades, a wrestle heavy guy that's got great striking, that's got good power. I don't know much. Again, I don't know much about the Riz, but he could be good. I just like Curtis Blades. He's unranked. This is a crazy jump up.
Yeah, I don't know. I like come in heavyweight. It's like if this was a random division, but heavyweight is different. Where it's like there's probably what
Yeah,
like
it
five
takes
good.
one punch.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all
I,
yeah. Also, there's only like 5 good, but I would put Curtis Blades like in that
no,
echelon of
that's what
like
I'm saying. Like
yeah,
Curtis Blades,
yeah.
you look at his losses. His losses are like Ngannou, Tom Aspinall.
Did he lose to Overeem? I think he lost, or did he
he
beat
lost
Overeem?
to somebody else that.
Yeah, well, he lost to Derek Lewis. That's what it was.
Yeah, Derek Lewis. That's the one where it's like Derek Lewis. You look at that loss and you're kind of like, I don't know, but then you remember his run like back in those times. Makes sense.
Yeah, you can't. Anyone who says I don't know, go watch a Derek Lewis highlight tape, or there's got to be a Derek Lewis documentary on YouTube or something. Go watch it because it was a crazy run.
So yeah, I mean, I don't. We had Talisan Teixeira last card. I keep bringing up that fight for some reason, but he was heavyweight coming in on like really no notice fighting. Like I don't know if Tafa was ranked, but like fighting up.
Yeah,
I just
think
don't see
like
that
13, which 13 in heavyweight is like unranked.
I just don't see a path for Rizvan to come. I mean, well, there is obviously a path because it's heavyweight, but like Curtis Blaydes, he has had 8 months to recover. He's one of the top tier contenders. Like this is kind of just Curtis Blaydes. I think gets a knockout and then like moves on to whoever's next in the heavyweight division matchmaking. Like I think there's obviously opportunity for Rizvan, but I think this is like don't overthink it spot.
I would say watch this. This has potential to be like a really crazy knockout from either of these guys because it's heavyweight, but also be prepared for this to be kind of a wrestle snooze fest a little bit because I mean, the other guy's Russian and and Curtis Blaydes a huge wrestling guy, but I don't know. This will just be a great, I think, great transition into. It's going to be a good fight, and it's got big stakes. But I think it's going to be a great transition into the main card.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit about Rizvan. He hasn't lost a fight in almost 10 years, so maybe he'll be able to cook something
he's
up.
Dana White Contender Series as well.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy to go from Dana White Contender Series.
I feel like did Blaydes have another opponent, and this wasn't like super short notice, but I feel like he might have got subbed in on like.
Let me check this.
Okay.
I
remember seeing something about Kuniev at like a couple weeks ago. I don't know if he got subbed in late. And I mean, Kuniev hasn't fought in 7 months either, so he's gonna be fresh too. This should be a really good fight. Half his wins come via knockout.
Yeah. The only thing that's coming up is
okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think.
So then when they do that, they trust Kuniev to make this a fight. Like this should be a good fight. Then I agree with you.
Yeah, that's Sorry.
All these last 3 fights could be crazy that we were just talking about.
For sure.
Okay, so those are our prelims. Some pretty solid prelims for what's been UFC numbered cards in the last couple of years. To be honest, I mean these last 3 fights alone. Then you have the Leal fight too. I think it could be a really interesting prelim round. But let's get to our main card. Starting off, we have the newly named King Green as a big underdog against Mauricio Huffy, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. So I want to start this one off with Mauricio because I believe you're in person watching his performance against James Lontop. So break it down. What did you see from that fight?
That guy, Ruffy, is crazy, and if I'm not mistaken, he's part of the Fighting Nerds.
He is a fighting nerd, yes.
So, dude, I would not like betting against those guys. And Bobby Green, if he does this, it's gonna be like it's gonna be crazy for like his aura in the lightweight division. But Ruffy, I think this is just a stepping stone for him. I think this is what, because I think Ruffio's better than Grant Dawson, who King Green he stopped him.
Yeah,
I think Ruffio's closer to like a Jalen Turner, to like, he just destroyed Bobby Green, and then Jalen Turner ended up going on to where he could have easily beat Moicano and been in Moicano's spot that Moicano ended up being in now, but decided not to go for the finish and ended up losing the fight.
We'll talk about Jalen Turner in a couple minutes.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And but yeah, Ruffy, I think, is actually, he's kind of on that trajectory. Not saying that he will go the Jalen Turner route, but I think they're going to start giving him those next ones. And I think Bobby Green is just an unfortunate stepping stone. I love Bobby Green too, but
yeah, I mean, I'm
not
King
betting for
Bobby Green, but he's plus 350 for a reason. I mean, he's what, 37 or 38 at this point. Big win over Jim Miller at UFC 300, but then he comes back and fights Patty, gets submitted in like 3 minutes. I don't want to call him a stepping stone because I think he deserves more respect than that. Like he's not just like a gatekeeper, like because he can actually go up and win those fights. But I'm
Well,
with you.
yeah.
I think this is just got Ruffy written all over it, and people might be a little bit low on Ruffy. Doesn't look like it because of the odds. But people forget in that fight against Lon Top came in overweight. I think it was at a catch weight they were fighting.
It was. Yeah, I remember that because I was at the weigh-ins too that day. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
interesting.
Lon Top also has been cut from the UFC since then. Not the most breaking news, but
Yeah, I guess that is. I mean, that's a good point to make. This could be what I was like describing earlier, where it's one of the UFC's big prospects, where they're dangling right in front of you a sweet little line that they're gonna hit later. Like, oh, Bobby Green by knockout, Bobby Green by submission was plus whatever. Like, I do see this happening. And by the way, I didn't mean Bobby
no,
Green was
yeah,
a
no, I was saying like I
stepping
wasn't saying
stool
you
for the
said that.
lightweight division. I
Yeah.
think he's more of a stepping stool for Rufi's specific arc. I think, same as any fighter goes through their next leap up. You could be right. I mean, Top they get cut, so
I just think
but
this
it's easy
is
to
a
get cut when
scary
you
spot to put
move
like a
forward.
-500 because King Green, like I wasn't saying like I'm saying I call like Kevin Holland a gatekeeper because he could just show up and not give a shit. Like King Green is someone who shows up and will always give his best, and
Oh
like
yeah,
he can give you a dogfight, and that's why I worry about Rufi in this fight. I do think the power of the fighting nerds will prevail though, just because they've been so hot recently. I mean, Gene Silva 2 weeks ago,
that was
Cal
crazy.
Braujo, all the ones they count. I know there's one guy or girl that they don't count as part of the fighting nerds that doesn't do that well, but all the other three or four of
Yeah,
them, I mean, they've just been on a crazy run. So I think this is going to end well for Rufi. Maybe it could be like a decision where he wins 2 rounds, King Green gets a crazy third round or something. But I like Rufi to win this fight, but I'm not really confident enough at this line against King Green, who we've seen be able to kind of, would you call it a fraud check on what he did to Grant Dawson, or kind of just
I
like,
think I think Rand Dawson's proved that he is, not a fraud. I think he's definitely. I think Bobby Green definitely put him in his place, and because just like with any sport, a lot of a lot of this sport has to do with confidence, and I think that definitely shattered him a little bit. I don't
yeah,
think Grant Dawson. I think Grant Dawson could have been again moving up if he beat, but it was literally like what, a 30-second knockout. It's tough to call a fight that quick a fraud check.
yeah.
Like he dog walked him, he caught
Well,
him.
I just meant in the sense that like Dawson was I didn't I wasn't following the UFC at this time very closely, but it just looked like Dawson was winning a bunch of fights, and he goes against like King Green, loses, then it's like okay, but then I think he's won a couple fights since then, so I wouldn't
Yeah,
call it a
yeah.
fraud check either. So in this fight, I'm looking at the over in the rounds. Hopefully, it's 1.5. I think King Green. I mean, we saw him go out kind of early against Paddy. I think he's gonna be a little bit more not tentative, but be more careful this time, not fall into a submission, not fall into a knockout. I mean, I don't know if he has like the craziest chin or whatever, but I feel like he's every fight I see King Green in, besides the last one, he's kind of sticking around. So I like the over at 1.5, maybe even 2.5. I think this could go to another decision just because, like I mentioned before, I think King Green's a tough out. But as for a side, I'm not going to trust King Green as an underdog, and I'm not going to put Rufi at almost -500 in my parlay. And I think you're kind of saying the same thing, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't put this fight. This is another one to just enjoy. Less so because I don't think it's going to be as good of a fight as the um the Joshua Van fight. I think this is going to be a great fight to watch. But this is more to do with what will happen after the fight. Like what it would do for Bobby Green if he won, and what it would do for Rufi if he won. I think both of them have equal kind of winnings here. Rufi a little bit more than Bobby Green, because if Bobby Green wins, he's going to just still fight another contender after this. I don't think he's going to really move up that much in
Yeah.
competition. Like I think he's going to still fight the same type of Grant Dawson's, Rufis, the Jalen Turners, the Patty Pimblets of the lightweight division. So I guess maybe again with the who wants it more, I would lean towards Rufi, but I'm not betting on this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in agreement with you there. So we'll move on to our first and only women's fight of the evening. We have Amanda Lemos, slight underdog. She actually came down. She was at like +135, facing off against Iasmin Lucindo. So give me your breakdown for these two fighters, because I'm not familiar with Amanda Lemos's game at all.
Amanda Lemos is a pretty not consistent, but a frequent flyer vet. Like I like or fights a decent amount, and I don't like betting on her fights, but the fact that Lucindo is minus 130 is kind of a little bit criminal. I think Lucindo is on a crazy run right now. I really like Lucindo. She's definitely on my parlay for this. Like I like her. I wouldn't pick her by submission, by knockout, by decision. I would just money line. I like this. I like Lucindo at this line.
I completely agree with you, and I've been hesitant on. Well, I started covering the UFC with UFC 300, and then Lucindo is on UFC 301 and UFC 307, and I was tentative to go or pick her in those spots just because she was facing off against like kind of equal level competition. Here she is again, but she's one of those like she has like an Eileen Perez type feel, but like almost better. Like she's
Yeah,
just
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
no, yeah, no problem. But she's
It's
just like I feel like she's
yeah.
on a hot streak. She's actually skilled. Like every time I see her fight, it's like she's winning. Why am I not taking her? You know, I mean Marina Rodriguez, I think is a pretty decent win. And then Amanda Lemos, she's 37 years old. I mean, I don't know what your opinion is on kind of your peak for MMA, but 37 versus a 23-year-old, especially Lucindo has a lot of UFC and MMA experience at 23. I think that helps you out looking at like Max Holloway and those type of people who started pretty young. Now she's kind of like a
Yeah.
couple years in the game. So I'm with you. I really like Lucindo in this fight. Um,
It's one of those vet ones where I do think I could totally see a world where Lemos states her claim and says, I'm in this fucking strawweight division. I belong to be in this top five." But I think it's Lucindo's time. I just think it's Lucindo's time. I think that's what I would bet on.
I agree. 4-fight win streak. I think I'm also looking at this one to go the distance just because it's a women's fight. You have the classic will you, won't you with that. A lot of people like to think that they'll all go the distance, but this one I think could be at good odds because both these fighters have been able to show with their submission tech or submission abilities and
Yes.
knockout abilities. So it may
I
be
think
like
it's definitely not going the distance. Like I think this is one of the less likelier fights to go the distance in this card.
that's why I'm taking it because I hope Vegas has the same sentiment that they think it won't. So you get a little plus on
Fair,
there. I
fair.
doubt it though because every women's fight is like always minus 400. Maybe this one won't be. So we'll see. I do like Lucindo a lot though, and yeah, that's all I
If
really
it
had
is
on this
minus
one.
400, go under on the time or go to not go the distance if that's on
Yeah,
your bet.
it's always tough to pick the distance stuff because they don't come out with it until like 2 days before, so you don't really know
Mhm.
like the odds. So I'm just kind of throwing shots in the dark, but something to keep an eye on for sure. Now, last fight we have before the well, actually, I don't know if this is really a co-main event anymore because it's only 3 rounds, but we'll get to that in a second. This one we have the aforementioned Jalin Turner slowly becoming a bigger and bigger underdog as time goes on. He's up to plus 110, facing off against Ignacio Bahamondes with an impressive win in that Sphere card as well. Nice knockout win over Manuel Torres. So if I had to guess, if I had to read your mind on this one, I think you're going to pick Jalin Turner. I think you think these are disrespectful odds. Am I wrong on that?
I think again, I don't think it's disrespectful odds. I think it's where it kind of should be. I'm surprised that he's not more of an underdog. Just from how much hype Bahamondes has and how much reverse hype that Jalin Turner has been on.
Yeah.
Like it has been. If you're a Jalin Turner fan, like it's rough, and I think this is right below in the intensity meter of like my contract's about to end up. This is like I'm about to be either 15th rank or not ranked anymore. Like this is he's going to have to probably fight Bobby Green after this again if he loses and or whatever. But I don't know. I just think there is so much stakes for Jalin Turner here. I think Bob Moondays is so good, but I'm going with Jalin Turner. I am going with Jalin Turner. You're all right about that.
Okay. So I I think I get too trapped in my head with this stuff. And I actually had Money Moicano at UFC 300. So I was like very hyped to see this happen, which
That's crazy.
Jalin Turner just kind of like not giving up, but like not finishing the fight when he could have. And Bahamondes, I remember being kind of impressed by his win too. I thought he could have pulled that win off against Manuel Torres. I don't forget if you, or I don't remember if he was a favorite in that fight. But I don't think Jalin Turner's really like. I think if he loses this fight, he'll still have at least another 2 fights in the UFC. Because I think after if he
Oh,
loses this,
yeah. No, I'm not saying it's actually like contract. I'm just
yeah,
saying like in terms of, oh, I need to go in and win this fight. It's like, because what's worse for, again, a confidence centric sport than losing your number next to your name? Like, oh my God, I can only imagine what that feels like as an athlete. And I think it would be something that I would hope lights a fire under his ass.
yeah, I think this one just comes down to what you actually think of Bahamondes. Because Jalin Turner has
True.
proved that he can
True.
beat like game fighters. Like I mean, I saw he beat Kulibao, whatever, like Uros Medic, who I think is pretty good slept on fighter. Malarkey,
Yes.
Brad Riddell. He also beat Bobby Green, which you mentioned before.
Yes, that was
But then he goes and loses to like Luke, Matt Fervola, and then I mean Gamrot and Hooker are pretty good, but and Moikani is good. So it's like it's kind of a mixed bag with Jalin Turner. You kind of know what you're getting with him, but Bahamondes is kind of coming up in the sport with all that hype. So it's like, do you really trust that hype and go with this? I mean, it looks like Vegas is kind of leaning in towards Bahamondes actually being pretty good. So I think this will be a really good fight as well to not only determine like what Bahamondes is, but what Jalin Turner's future is. And I think it'll just be a good back and forth. Like I don't think this is going to be like a runaway fight. I could see this one ending early too.
yeah.
But ultimately, I'm going with Bahamondes just due to my recency bias of seeing Turner lose that fight. I think a lot of people are out on him. We'll have to see him prove people wrong, and I would love to see him win. I wouldn't love to see him win because I'm taking Bahamondes, but I could see him winning. And then maybe next time we're talking about a Jalin Turner fight, I'm like, you know what? He showed a lot against Bahamondes. I'll take him, but just out of like theory of what I just saw, I can't really take Jalin Turner.
Yeah, it's completely reasonable. Yeah, that's what makes me scared about betting Jalin Turner. But I just need, I if he has the right mindset going into it, I feel like he can beat him. Well, again, you're right though. It's how good Bahamondes is, and we just don't really know how good he is, and this will actually be just a great litmus test.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one as well. I think this could be some fireworks too. So really like bangers on bangers in this card. And not to mention our new co-main event, the rematch between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. This is number 2. We saw the first time only a couple of years ago, I believe. Did you watch this first fight?
I didn't watch this first fight. This is one of the ones where I definitely had to be up the next day, but
Okay.
I remember waking up and seeing the clips. I pretty sure I watched Fiziev's last fight. Yeah, it was his last fight where he destroyed his knee, I believe, or something like that.
Yes, he's been out of the game for almost a year and a half at this point. September 2023 was his last fight. So I watched this fight on the treadmill, so I wasn't paying the closest of attention. But it was a really interesting back and forth fight. Like it was one of those good stand up fights where it wasn't like a complete war, but it was like really technical. You could tell both guys were kind of locked into their striking. So I'm interested to hear your take on Justin Gaethje, and then we'll get to Fiziev. So Gaethje, obviously, devastating loss almost 11 months ago. I mean, we talk about the last second knockout, obviously one of the craziest knockouts in all of MMA history, but what people forget is Max Holloway owned that entire fight. Like that's the reason why he pointed to the middle. He was up 4-0. Like I don't think it was even disputable.
Yeah.
Um, and I bet on Gaethje in that fight, so I was disappointed in that outcome. But what is your take on Gaethje? I think he's what is he 37 or is he a little bit younger than that? I'm forgetting now, but I think he might be 34 or something. Do you think
Yeah.
this knockout could be detrimental to Gaethje moving forward, like something he doesn't ever come back from, or do you have trust in Gaethje that he'll return to the form that we saw in 2023, beating Poirier, that type of Gaethje?
Anyone who's seen Gaethje fight, seen Gaethje talk, he's been brain damaged a long time ago. I don't think this is gonna do anything with how he fights, does anything with how he does how he goes into it. I mean, just going off their last fight and going off Fiziev's last fight, where you could debatably say winning, or he was winning. He was beating Gamrot, in my opinion, and then end up losing to that leg break. But how is he the favorite? I don't understand how he's the favorite actually in this. And I this is totally easily on my parlay Gaethje. I I
Yeah,
I
I'm
just don't think
hammering
Fiziev
Gaethje
is
as
that
well.
great.
I don't understand this one at all. I mean, Fiziev,
He's good.
I don't. What was the? How did he damage his knee against Gamrot? Like he was winning that fight and then just had like a freak injury, or Gamrot like did
If I
something?
remember correctly, Gamrot did hit him, or was it grappling exchange? I remember like literally like taking a screenshot on my phone, being like, "Holy shit, this just happened!" But I don't remember exactly how it happened. I feel like it was very similar to the Kevin Holland versus was that Imavov or was that who's that other the one that he broke his rib? Remember where Kevin Holland
Oh,
just kind of
Roman
got rolled?
Dolidze. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dolidze.
deletes it where he rolls his lib, his it rolls and then gets his rib. I feel like it was kind of a grappling exchange or it was just a straight up hit to knee. I'm not remembering at all, but it wasn't like I don't think he just like stepped back and destroyed his knee. I think it definitely was from something that Gamrot did.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with Fiziev's game, but he's very like inactive. Like he hasn't fought in a year and a half since the Gamrot fight, and then I believe it was like another year and a half since he fought Gaethje, and then he's coming in on short notice, which we haven't. I mean, I've alluded to it with the Dan Hooker pulling out stuff, but what was this like a
That's
week and a
true.
half's
Yeah.
notice too? So I don't understand why. I really don't understand why he's minus 160 on
I
this
don't
one.
get this at all. Like I thank you to all the people that are betting on Fiziev right now because
Yeah,
everyone else, please take your money and run. It is. I don't get why this. Maybe the world because I feel like it's a shock the world moment. If it's because you think about what we were saying earlier with the announcers going over all the like odds of who's gonna win, who's gonna win. Like I feel like that should be what they're talking about in this fight. Like because if Fiziev wins, it should be like holy shit, they shocked the world. But it'll be like oh the the favorite one. Like
yeah.
I don't
I don't
understand
get
that.
it. I think maybe the lasting image of people's head, and we've all seen that Holloway knockout probably what, like at least 50 times.
Yeah.
So maybe people are just like, oh, Gaethje was the one who got knocked out, and he did get dominated in that fight. But I mean, he a year
Yeah, by
before he's
Max
knocking
Holloway.
out Dustin Port. Yeah, I mean Max also got knocked out, so maybe that's part of like a chain reaction that people have in their head. But I mean, we don't have to get into the Ilias of everything. So I mean, you look back a year or a fight before that, Gaethje is, I think, probably was an underdog against Poirier, if I had to guess. I don't think I bet that fight, but he knocked
Um,
Poirier out. I mean, I don't, in
yeah,
2023,
that's
July. So, I mean, I
a
think
good question.
He's had almost 11 months off. He's been preparing something that I think is also a big point in this fight is he's been preparing for a stand-up fight with Dan Hooker. I mean, Fiziev's coming in and not really preparing for anything. It's on short notice, obviously, but I don't know
He is a
who
striker though. If I remember correctly,
he
he's
is
like
a
a
striker.
kickboxer.
That's what I'm
So it
saying. That helps Gaethje because he's preparing for a striker too, and
yeah.
Dan
Oh
Hooker,
yes, yes,
and
yeah.
then but also Fiziev could just be ready to fight or whatever. But I don't know who Fiziev's next opponent could have potentially been. I think this is just a weird
Yeah,
spot where I
probably
mean,
no one.
yeah,
My guess is because you hear all this shit that's coming out around it with like Dustin Poirier saying, "Oh, I didn't get a call," and like I forgot who else said that they didn't get a call. Maybe it was like Moicano or someone. But it was like I think the UFC just has their plans for the other guys. Like I think Poirier has already announced a while ago that he has an opponent, a date, and a location picked out for his retirement fight. He's just waiting on the things to get signed. And
yeah,
so I would assume that's what the UFC wants to do to give him like a good send off thing because I'm guessing it'll be in Louisiana and be a huge thing. But and against an opponent that's much more likely for him to beat than the war that he would go through against Justin. Not to say that he wouldn't win. I totally think that he could very likely win that fight. But uh, I don't think you'd want to see that as a. I mean, depends on the type of fan you are. There are fans that just love bloodshed, and I could totally get that. I totally understand that. I just love Dustin Poirier too much, and I want to see him have the Robbie Lawler send off.
yeah. People were speculating Ilya versus Poirier, which I don't think would happen. Um,
That would be awful. That would be so evil of the UFC to do to him. That would be so evil. And if Ilya did that, oh my god, he's killing all the kings.
he's
He's killing all the
collecting all the
kings.
Infinity Stones.
Dude, that would be
Um,
so fun.
back to this fight. I mean, the names you mentioned, I believe Charles and Armen was people that Gaethje called out, but I
That's
just
who it was.
watched.
Armen was asking. Was it Armen? It was either Armen or Oliveira was pretty much saying the same thing that that Poirier said, where they were like, I didn't say no. Like I didn't say no to the fight.
Yeah.
They didn't say yes to me.
I
And
was
so
actually watching the Embedded series right before this podcast,
let's
and
go. We got him on.
Gaethje was like, I understand why they wouldn't take it because they're the number 1 and 2 guys in the division. Like, there's no point in them coming down on short notice. I wouldn't do it either. So,
Yeah.
really, probably only a couple limited options. I mean, Chandler and Patty are booked for, I believe, the next fight card. I think the lightweight's like pretty figured out on what's happening. So this
Either
fight
of those
makes
guys
sense.
versus Gaethje would have been fun, but I do
Yeah.
like Chandler versus Patty. That is a fun fight.
Gaethje already beat Chandler too, right?
He did, but their fight styles just clash so well.
Yeah, it would be a good fight. So overall takes from this, I mean, I'm on Gaethje. This might be my biggest bet. I don't know. It's even if he loses, I'll be like, you know what? I'm not mad I made that bet. It's over for Gaethje. But like,
you're not dumb for betting the house on Gaethje for this fight.
yeah,
It's not a stupid bet.
yeah. I mean, and this keeps climbing. This was another one that kept climbing too. I think Gaethje was plus 125. Now he's plus 135. Maybe we'll get him up to plus 150 by the end of the week.
That's
I don't know
crazy.
what the people
If he's not a favorite by fight night, okay. Actually, put in your bets now because new conspiracy. What if by fight night it's like, oh, Gaethje's the heavy favorite, and then the whole storyline's back where it's like, oh, Fiziev shocked the world. But it wouldn't happen like that. But put in your bets now. Don't let this line go away.
I might play a little something on Gaethje. We'll see though. Anything more on this fight before we move to the main event of the evening?
Other than rest in peace, what I'm sure would have been fight of the year in Hooker versus Gaethje. This might be just as good. It's just not going in with that same oomph that Hooker versus Gaethje was having. Like you see, I'm sure you get the same algorithm that I get with MMA, where it's just all the edits of Gaethje and Hooker just like saying all their crazy stuff, like Gaethje giggling while he's getting iced up after getting knocked the fuck out, or Hooker saying, I love this shit. And
Yeah.
they were going to fight to the nail. I mean, not that these guys aren't, but like it was going to be a different aura around the other fight. And I hope eventually down the road we do get it. I just find it a lot less likely now, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if Gaethje wins, I don't think it's out of the picture because I think Armen has to fight again. So maybe I don't know who he draws, but
if Gaethje wins, I think he would fight the loser of, or maybe actually probably the winner of Chandler Pimlet, and then if he lost,
like a title eliminator type thing.
Yeah, if he lost, that's what I would see them more likely putting him towards Hooker. Maybe I'm wrong with that.
Yeah, I think there's a big line right now because I think Charles has done enough to reclaim his spot to get a rematch versus Islam, and then Armen obviously was going to get the rematch, had to pull out, so maybe they do an Armen Charles too. I don't know. There's a lot to figure out at the top, and obviously this fight will help indicate what there is to do. But we still have one more fight to get to. Maybe the most popular fighter in the UFC. He's definitely top 2 or 3.
Right now, probably I would say.
Definitely number 1. I mean, if you still count McGregor's not really a UFC fighter to anyone anymore. So definitely top 2, maybe probably number 1. Mr. Poatan Shama, Alex Pereira welcomes in another title challenger, which this will be his 4th title defense in the span of a year. It's Magomed Ankalaev. Alex Pereira, I think this fight started as pretty even odds. So I want to hear your takes on Shama because we haven't talked about him on our last podcast, and now he's here. I mean, he's the talk of the sport. So I'd love to listen to what you have to say about him as a UFC fan. What's your take?
He is special. Like, dude, as someone who was like, I don't want to even say like a non-believer because I was kind of like indifferent. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know ball when he first came in. And then when him versus Izzy happened twice in the UFC, it was after that when he moved up to heavyweight or light heavyweight and then started in that fight with Jan. I was kind of like, I mean, this guy, he might be overhyped. Like his fight with Jan, I was kind of underwhelmed by. I remember I wasn't really watching it. That was a D&B night, and I was kind of distracted. But I think other than that, all he has shown is absolute, not just dominance, but dominance in spectacular fashion. Like he just does not other than the Ankalaev fight, he does not put on a stinker. Like every single one of his fights is just much watched television. It is crazy. I don't know how he did it. Like I just don't know how he does like this trajectory that he went on. I think is crazier than Conor McGregor because it was just so quick and it was so dominant.
Yeah. No, I mean, I came in at the perfect time because I started carrying again. Well, I was like in and out of it during COVID. Then I really started to clock in UFC 300. I mean, we stayed up at DMB. I think it was like 2 a.m. by the time this fight started, just because, I mean, the Holloway fight went 5 rounds. The Whaley fight went 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, most of our bets are dead. There's still this Alex Pereira, you know, we know Shama, but what can he do against Jamal Hill? Jamal Hill is kind of like an annoying guy.
Didn't
I
lose
mean,
his belt. Yeah, he didn't
yeah.
lose his belt going into this. The lineal champ was still, I think technically the lineal champ. Oh no, never mind. Because Yuri was still the lineal champ. I thought
No, he
so.
beat Yuri before.
Yeah, he beat Yuri before, so he was the lineal champ at that point. I
And
think.
then you get the cup
Francis. Sorry,
the
it was
cup
Francis.
check, and then he's like, I don't. He does the thing where he's like, I don't need the
Yeah.
ref to stop. Gets Jamal Hill, and then not only that, he takes the super short notice fight, replacing McGregor Chandler at UFC 303. I mean, I'll always remember that video of him getting in the car and just driving to land down under like the Volk music. So that was hilarious. And then he gets the knockout against Yuri. And then UFC 307, like he's back again facing off against Khalil Roundtree. It's like, what's this Khalil Roundtree guy doing? Roundtree wins the first 2 rounds, arguably. I think that's what I'm remembering correctly. Then Pereira starts to turn it on round 3, and then round 4 gets the craziest knockout. I mean, that fight was a true bloodbath. Like, this man is pure entertainment, and he has like the best personality just to be like a chill Shama dude. Like, I love his
He's
walkout.
chill, but also the scariest dude you've ever seen. Like he is such an enigma of a person because you don't know. It's like, is he that chill? Like, he might just be smiling for the camera. He might just, knock the fuck out of you if you say something wrong. But like, he does seem chill from everything that we've seen. But I just think that this fight with Magomed Ankalaev is the make or break with him. Not make or break, but like in terms of like putting him at GOAT status, which you can argue he is on that. You can definitely argue he is on that trek to make it to become on that Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this would be a huge, huge thing because this is like all they'll be saying is, oh, can you wrestle? Can you wrestle? Can you wrestle? And the Jan Blachowicz fight, that was my main stickler, was like, he looked okay wrestling. Like he had some decent defensive wrestling, but if you watch the embedded, I didn't watch the embedded actually. You beat me to it. I watched the countdown though. And the countdown, he was saying how he's got so many different he's expecting Ankalaev to stick to his word and wanting to stand and bang for the first couple of minutes, but he's also expecting him to, once he starts losing, to start wrestling, and then that's when he's really excited to show off his new, his ground game, which with the Khalil Roundtree fight last fight where he was like, oh, I got this crazy move Joe Rogan's never even heard of, like they're not going to know what to call it on the thing. I'm going to hit Alex Pereira with a move that no one's ever seen. But I think this is different from that. I think this is him actually being like, I don't think Alex Pereira really jokes that much. I think he's literally just like,
yeah, he's
serious. Been working on his ground game, and it's something that no one really tested in his light heavyweight championship run, or since being a champion. Before that, Jan tested it and he made it a competitive fight. So this could very much be a competitive fight. I'm just always been a little bit of an Ankalaev hater too. I'm not gonna lie. I've been a little bit of an Ankalaev hater. I just think in terms of Russians, like I don't think he's one of the better ones. Like out of the Dagestani guys, like out of the Islams, the Umars, the Nurmagomedov and Bellator or PFL, I forget his name, but out of all these guys, I think I know that he's not part of their camp, but I think he's
like adjacent. Yeah,
he's much more. I don't like him that much.
Yeah, so I think the thing here is like they've obviously been kind of delaying Ankalaev, and you can say it's because he's a boring fighter, which I didn't catch his last fight against Alexander Rakic. I think people are saying that was like a pretty good performance, slept
Yeah,
on.
he's not a boring fighter. That is cap. He just can wrestle. And he doesn't wrestle that often or that crazily well, but for light heavyweight, he wrestles fine and his striking's good. His striking's
Yeah,
very good
that's
actually.
I think
Like
his.
that's his
I
better.
remember talking about that in the UFC 308 video, where it's like he low-key has some knockouts. Like he just isn't just
Yeah,
like
totally.
because you hear about him, it's like oh he's just this wrestler guy who's gonna take you down, but like that's not really his style. Like he likes to stand and strike too. So I'm hoping for Pereira's sake that he actually sticks true to his word. But I could just see him like 2 minutes in just going for a takedown. So we'll have to see what the case is here with Chama. Will he actually be able to wrestle on the ground? Will Ankalaev actually do it? I think this fight's just a weird one to look at because you don't really know what the strategies are. I mean, there's been a lot of talking, but you don't know what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, and also if Pereira wins this, who does he fight? At this point, he has to move to heavyweight, right? Like who else in the light heavyweight division does he fight? Because
Yeah, I'll look at the rankings real quick,
he
but
can rematch. He can rematch Hill. There's Olberg. Olberg is literally the only other name that I can think of that like you can say okay, but I'm pretty sure he's already scheduled to fight Jamal, if I'm not mistaken, which would be a good to see who goes for the belt next. See if Jamal.
yeah, so you have
I
Ankalaev's
know.
1, Yuri's 2. I mean, you're not getting a Yuri trilogy. Yeah, I mean, Jan Blachowicz, I believe. Is it Jan that's fighting Olberg?
I think you're right.
I
Yes,
think that's the
because I
one.
forgot Jamal just lost to Yuri. That was
Jamal did just take a
I don't
fight
love
against
that.
Roundtree, though. That's the one you're thinking of.
He fought
Jamal,
round. Oh yeah, that's what was announced. Yes, yes.
yeah, main event soon. Jamal versus Roundtree.
That's right.
Um, so I mean, really, it's like Olberg, or you're going back to rematches versus like Jan or Jamal.
Or
I
Roundtree again. I would be out of all those, I would be most hyped for Roundtree. I mean, Jamal would be fun for like the press and for because like if Jamal won that, holy smokes, would he shut up the MMA community? Oh my
yeah,
god, would he shut up the MMA community? But like the whole build up to that would be great. But fight wise, oh my god, I would love to see a Khalil Roundtree fight again. I know that he dominated him, but it was competitive.
yeah. No, he gave. I mean, out of Jamal Hill and Yuri, I didn't watch the first Yuri fight, but the second Yuri fight, like he gave him the most competition out of those two guys for sure. I mean, round 4 start. I don't even think round. I mean, round 2 barely started against Yuri the second time, and didn't even start against Jamal Hill. Um, So then, if it goes to heavyweight, we have to figure out this Jones Aspinall thing. I mean, we don't have to get into this, but do you
I
think it's happening? Or, I mean, I would love to see even Pereira versus Aspinall is a crazy fight. Like, obviously, it's been more alluded to that he would face against John Jones, just because that's the one I've been hearing more often. But
I think it's yeah, I think actually now that I'm thinking about it, this is actually a really big scare for people who want to see the Aspinall Jones fight, me included, because who was John Jones to say when he moves up to heavyweight, say, hey, take my belt. I just want the actual money fight because him. I would imagine him versus Poatan would be more money than him versus maybe not though.
I feel like it's the
Maybe not.
same scale.
It's
But
probably the same scale. I think the best thing to do. Someone said this a while ago. And I forgot who the fourth guy was, but to do a 4-man tournament.
the tournament,
Maybe it was before Jones beat Miocic. I don't think so though. I think
yeah,
it
it
was.
was because Tom was trying to fight him. He's like, "How about we do a 4 tournament, like me versus Alex, then Jones versus Stipe, then the winners face, like we can do it all on the same night."
Yeah, that would be crazy. But obviously, I don't think the UFC is ever going to do a same night tournament ever again.
Yeah,
I think the closest they were doing to not a same night tournament, but a tournament was that BMF one from a while back. That was it was Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, and Charles Oliveira or Max Holloway. I think it was those
yeah.
four, but it was another 4-man tournament that was proposed.
I
They
didn't
didn't
I
ever
didn't think of this at all. The options for Pereira if he wins. I mean, he could get an instant Ankalaev rematch, but I don't think the UFC would be like jonesing to do that one too bad, you know.
Oh, you're saying if Pereira loses or
No,
wins?
if Pereira wins, like I don't think they're gonna trot back in Ankalaev. He'd probably fall.
Oh, he's fought, dude. That's what the UFC wants. I think. I think
Yeah,
they want that because they've been delaying this so much. They're gonna say, "Oh, you lost. Go fight a freaking Oldberg."
Olberg.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go fight. Yeah, it would probably be Oldberg next. And the funny thing is, if Oldberg wins, he would get the title shot. If Ankalaev wins, he'd probably have to fight Yuri
Yeah,
or something like
that
that.
actually makes a lot of sense. I feel like it's kind of figured out. Do you think they would do Jan again? I mean, I don't know. I forget who Jan. Oh, Jan's fighting
Jan
Oldberg.
actually is a great argument here. What has Jan been?
He's been quiet since losing that fight.
No, but he won. I think he won a fight since then. No, or fought since then. Where is he? No, you're right. That's his last fight. Holy smokes! July 2023. Damn.
It's been a while.
And his fight before that was a draw to Ankalaev. And his fight before that was a win over Rakic. So like Jan Blachowicz versus Rakic, or Jan Blachowicz versus Rakic 2, or like Jan Blachowicz versus Oldberg, or versus Ankalaev 2, because they had a draw for the only draw for a vacant belt ever.
Yeah, I think Oldberg versus Jan is booked for something, but maybe it got delayed. I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot about. Yeah. You're right.
So we'll go back to the actual fight here. So are you with the Shama and
Yes.
Poatan? I agree.
I'm with the Shama. I did instantly, back when this fight was very first allowed on RI Sports Books. I instantly did hammer a double Gaethje. No, it was double Hooker, double Ankalaev, because they were both super big underdogs then.
Yeah.
For some reason, I saw Ankalaev was like plus 130 or something like that, and I was like, okay, that's crazy. But anything plus for this fight versus Pereira and Ankalaev is crazy, because it's all speculation. It's all speculation, because Ankalaev has not faced someone with Pereira's striking capabilities. He's faced someone with, I think, like Pereira's not pure power, because Pereira has the like biggest punch I think in ever recorded on the machine, but like in the ring, like Jan Blachowicz has good power. Rakic has decent power, not that great of power, but like he's fought against people that have good power. It's the striking, the striking strategy that Alex Pereira puts into that fight. Like those later rounds where he's just beating up on Khalil, and every time Khalil moves his hands, Alex Pereira's hand is directly going to where he just moved his hands to block. Like it was damn near bullying. Like it was crazy. Like I think it is definitely a fight to watch for sure. It could be a snooze. I pray to God it's not a wrestling snooze, but I don't think it will be. I don't think Ankalaev is that type of wrestler.
My one strategy point, I think Pereira's leg kicks will play a big factor in this fight, because I saw like a 30-second clip. I don't know if it was against Jan or against who, but Ankalaev was getting clipped at the leg. I think he had to switch legs. So I'm looking at the leg kicks as a key to victory for Alex Pereira. There's my technical coach, Dean Thomas, note of the day. But I don't know. I just think it would be way more fun to bet on Pereira than on Ankalaev. I think we got to keep this run going. I mean, he's really like, him and Ilya are like probably the top two draws of the sport right now, just because they're going on crazy runs. So let's keep the Shama going. Hit a nice little for the Shama. So that'll wrap up the card. Every fight we went through. So now it's time to get to our bets. So what do you have? You said you'd cook something up throughout. I don't know if you've been.
Yeah, no, I've been looking.
Okay.
And I've been on a different wave. And I think this is going to be my first card that I'm on this new wave. And I've been wanting to do just straights. I'm kind of sick of parlays.
The parlays are for the birds, man. You always have that one leg. Like, but well, make fun of me all you want, but I went to Connecticut to bet, and I had a FanDuel parlay boost, and I had Marab and Eileen. I was like, oh, 2 underdog sweet, but it needed to be like plus 400. So I was like, oh, I just need one more little thing to get in there. So I put in Payne Talbot. And then that made me lose like so much money. So I'm off the parlay wave. I'll still probably place one of the stupid like boosts or whatever, but I'm not putting anyone who's like minus 500 or more in there. I learned my lesson.
Oh, that is rough. Yeah. But my 5 that I would say, and again, these are all straights. These are not parlayed. Morono money line. All right, that is one that I think. Oh my God, you might wake up happy. You might go through happy. I think I think the Brunno Ferreira Armen Petrosyan fight, if it is 1.5, the over I think is a lock.
Okay.
1.5 rounds, I think the over is a lock. But other than that, I wouldn't touch that fight. Same with the Joshua Van fight, I wouldn't touch. Curtis Blaydes, Curtis Blaydes money line. I would also do as a separate one, not a big one, just like as like a cushion, one of those ones that hey, I'll have like $5 in the account if I lose everything.
Yep.
And then I think you go Jalin Turner, and you go Poatan. As my other two, just straight money lines.
I mean, both Poatan's like -115 at this point, so that's a decent get back, and then Turner's the little underdog. So I like that. Like those plays.
Same with I'm really excited about this Morono fight. I don't know what it is about this fight, but watch me be so wrong. But if I'm so right, wait till the next podcast.
We'll hear about it. Okay. So once again, my overall record 22-29. It's not as bad as it looks because units and making money on underdogs and stuff. But we got to get some wins back in the column. We got to start going 3-2 again. So once again, I have some parlays. I do have 3 straight picks, 2 parlays, so nothing crazy with the parlays. First parlay, prelim parlay. First fight of the night. This is going to be either really good or really bad. Djorden Santos money line -200 coming off that Dana White Contender Series. I think he's going to get the W. And then I'm also pairing him with Joshua Van money line. Both honestly pretty risky, so like this might be a minor parlay. But combining those two, you get +130, so pretty good odds on that one. The distance parlay, 3 fights go the distance. So Gutierrez, Castaneda, the other Santos versus Marshall to go the distance, and then Morono versus Leal. I think Morono Leal is probably the easiest one of those to go the distance, but I think all 3 will. So we'll pair those 3 together. And then our 3 straight picks. So Brunno Ferreira straight up +125. Main card upset pick. Gaethje +135. Possibly could be more, possibly could be less, but I just don't understand why he's an underdog. And if I lose it, it was a hard overhead pick, and I won't have a problem with that the next day. And then the last one, Shama -115. I'm with you there, taking that money line as well. So hopefully we can win some money for the viewers out there.
I can't believe I forgot. I'm pretty sure I forgot to say Gaethje for mine.
Yeah, you did.
Gaethje is absolutely a lock. I forgot about that, and I need to do that quick before they change that line. Before whoever messed up the system.
I have a feeling it's going to stay the same because I think by now, because I follow. Are you active on Twitter at all, or what is X now?
No.
Okay, so I follow this account there that's like fight odds, and it always, as soon as like of the first person who posts odds between 2 people post it, then it's like, oh, wide odds on this. Like for example, the Gutierrez Castaneda fight. As soon as I got announced, Castaneda was like -270, and now it's all of a sudden it's back down to even. Like that was only a couple of days ago, and the Gaethje Fiziev was like before that. So I think it's going to be around the same area. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to like Gaethje +120, just because the public would probably bet on Gaethje over Fiziev. Yeah. We'll see what happens, though. I think he'll still be an underdog, but it's probably not a bad idea to bet him now.
Yeah, I agree that it is probably going to stay the same. It just feels like I'm tripping. It feels like a mirage in front of me. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. So this has been another great podcast. Good catching up. We'll be back UFC 314. I did text our mutual friend. He said he'll be listening, but he couldn't come on. So maybe sometime we'll be able to figure out when he'll be able to join us. Also, if I know your friend that you may have thought would want to come, he was doing some stuff I saw in his story. So maybe someday in the future we'll have people.
Enjoy the trip.
Enjoy the trip if you're watching. You know who you are. Maybe someday in the future we'll have some more people join us, but it's been a blast covering UFC 313. So is there anything else you want to plug or talk about before we sign off here?
Since the last time I was on the pod, I shouted out the Twitch. Before that, I wasn't really streaming, but since then I was like, okay, I'm gonna stream some more. So, little Shizzy on Twitch. Tune in. We do some fun things sometimes and have a good time. Also, D Shane Crosby on Instagram.
Okay, we'll put those links in the chat. I have seen you active on Twitch because I do still get the noties. You're playing that Losers Dice or whatever, where you have the gun, and is that the right game?
Yeah, the Liar's Dice one. That one's we were playing that one. That one's pretty good. I've been doing the like God Gamer Challenge recently, which is like you win one ranked game in a row for 10 different games, and then if you lose, you go back to 0. It's brutal.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. So tune into Shane's Twitch, catch him there. More DubCast content come on the way. UFC videos, we'll keep them coming for all the big numbered cards. Maybe someday we'll dive into the fight cards, but when the UFC doesn't put effort into their fight cards, I'm not putting effort into it either. So we'll stick with the number cards for now. And as always, be easy, guys.